Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. After the international troops withdrawal from Afghanistan back in August 2021, Afghan Taliban took over the power in the war-ravaged country after 2 decades of war. Since the Afghan Taliban have taken power in Afghanistan, there has been upsurge in the terrorist acts in Pakistan in particular, and majority of these terrorist acts have been carried out by banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, there has been a report that has been released by Pak Institute for Peace Studies, which says in the 21-month period since Kabul takeover by the Taliban, the terror attacks in Pakistan have increased by 73%, while people killed in these rose by 138%. Now, while the Afghan Taliban were taking over power in Afghanistan, they made a commitment to the international community that they will not allow any terrorist outfit or militant group to operate from the Afghan soil to carry out terrorist acts against any other country. Pakistani authorities have repeatedly been conveying to the Afghan Taliban to fix the problem. There had been a number of high-level interactions also between the authorities of the two countries. At the same time, we have also seen Pakistan advocating the case of Afghanistan, urging the international community to help Afghanistan to avert the dire economic and humanitarian crisis as well. And there has been a categorical message after there was an upsurge of terrorist acts in Pakistan, categorical message by Pakistani authorities that we are determined, the entire nation remains determined in order to eradicate this particular menace of terrorism from the soil. And no one would be allowed to challenge the writ of the state. Now, what sort of an impact this particular emerging trend of terrorist acts would have on Pakistan, and what sort of an approach and a strategy is required in order to impress upon the Afghan Taliban so that they take a concrete action, particularly against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan? We'll try to understand that, and for that we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Brigadier Retired Mohammed Zeeshan. He is Director General, Center for Peace, Security and Developmental Studies. Brigadier Zeeshan, thank you very much for joining in at Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. We'll be joined by other participants also later in the show. I'll be introducing them then and when they join in. Let me begin the discussion with you, Brigadier Zeeshan. Now, there has been a phenomenal surge in the terrorist acts since the Taliban took over Kabul back in August 2021. The report says it is 73%. It's a phenomenal increase. What core reasons do you think are associated with this particular increase of terrorist acts in Pakistan?
Thank you very much, Jawad, for inviting me. A very pertinent question that we need to understand, that why this sudden surge in terrorist strikes. We need to go back to 15th August 2021 when Taliban took over Kabul. The control Taliban have in Afghanistan is not to be taken as something which is defined in the developed or developing world. Taliban is a tribal, Afghanistan is a tribal society, and Taliban also govern through that tribal mechanism. Various provinces and their tribal elders and leaders are pretty free to act in favor of their tribes. So, Taliban government in Kabul cannot dictate definitively what is to happen and what is not to happen, other than certain, law and order situations. Now, this is first thing we need to understand, that what is the environment within the borders of Afghanistan. The similar type of environment also existed in the previous regime, and previous regime also had the support of coalition forces which were there to maintain peace and order over there. However, under the Taliban, this freedom of action with the tribes is more. Now, getting back to the point of TTP, why such a surge? TTP had very clear support from the previous regime of Ashraf Ghani. The Afghan intelligence and other inimical agencies who were operating then in Afghanistan were supporting and funding TTP at that time. So TTP was regrouping after being beaten badly, and they had to run out of the tribal regions of Pakistan into Afghanistan. After that regrouping, now they wanted to come back and they wanted to wrest control of their traditional areas in the erstwhile FATA and some parts of Balochistan. So that is the first purpose. The second purpose was to exploit the vacuum we have in the political mechanism, and that vacuum is useful for any terrorist outfit or a militant outfit. And you have also seen the surge in the terrorist and militant incidents by the Baloch separatists also. So this is the primary few of the reasons primarily responsible for this surge.
Right. When we talk about the certain limitations that you've just mentioned regarding the Afghan Taliban over there in Afghanistan, as you mentioned that the tribes over there have more freedom as compared to the freedom they had when the international troops were present over there and the previous regime was there. Now, when we go by this argument, but they made a commitment to the international communities, perhaps on the basis that they were sure once they would be taking over the reins of power in Afghanistan, they are going to control everything. And particularly when it comes to those militant or terrorist outfits which were using the Afghan soil to operate from there to carry out terrorist activities. So on what confidence did they make that commitment with the international community then?
Jawad, this is about politics. And in politics, when you are in electioneering, you have different slogans, you have different set of promises. But when you come into power, you have a different agenda. It may not be totally different, but certainly you may not come up to the promises you made while you were you were making an election campaign. Okay, so that is primarily the difference. We need to understand that at that time, Afghan Taliban were playing, in a political setup. Right now it's their government in place in Afghanistan.
So, we have seen them also taking some action, killing the top commanders of the IS Khorasan over there. But that is quite opposite to what their approach and strategy happens to be towards the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. They've been taking concrete action. We've seen a number of instances also. They've been cooperating and collaborating even with the United States of America. Even when the international coalition forces were present in Afghanistan, they've been carrying out and collaborating to launch the combined operations to carry out and target the IS Khorasan. Why such sort of an action can't be taken by the Afghan Taliban against the TTP? So what are the limitations regarding that?
Jawad, that is history. After the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in 1970s, there was first a struggle against that occupation, and that struggle was named as Afghan Jihad, and it was supported by the Western powers, and certainly Pakistan became the jump off points for all that jihadi activities or that fight, guerrilla war against the Soviet might present inside the Afghanistan. The generations who fought together, whether they were Afghanis or Pakistani Pashtuns, these TTP boys are their next generation, and they have this history. Now again, after the 9/11, when the Afghan Taliban had to run and hide, they were facilitated by these TTP boys, and TTP facilitated them on this side of the border by giving refuge to their families, by looking after their wounded, the Afghan Talibans. So it is really difficult for Afghan Taliban to undertake an aggressive cleanup operation against such Pakistani Pashtuns, part of Pakistani Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, within the Afghanistan, and they just cannot forget the association they had. So it will take some time, it will take a lot of politics in order to create an environment where the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan are the hardened core to be targeted, and the softer periphery of the TTP is given incentives.
Wasn't the ISK also breakaway sort of faction from banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan also? So if that was the case, so why an action against the IS Khorasan and not against the TTP, even if there is a limitation of will at the on the part of Afghan Taliban?
IS is a phenomena which is not acceptable to, in my opinion, will not be acceptable to Afghani Talibans. Why? Because IS is a Middle Eastern concept. It is basically ISIL or ISIS, which belongs to a particular geography in the Middle East. And their agenda was, a manifestation of the ideology given by Al-Qaeda, which the Afghan Taliban may not like to follow. So it was in their interest to subdue IS-K in Afghanistan.
So okay, when we talk about there was an affiliation, or there was a kind of a trust between the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, as you mentioned, they'd been helping the Afghan Taliban out also when they were waging a war against the international troops. We also see Pakistan also doing a lot for Afghanistan, whether it comes to the peace and reconciliation efforts, the striking of Doha peace deal, helping bring in the warring parties to the negotiating table, reaching to some sort of a conclusion to this particular conflict of 2 decades. And then we saw the kind of efforts Pakistan also made when it came to evacuation of international troops from there, and also the people of various nationalities when it comes to advocating the case of the dire humanitarian and economic crisis the Afghan people are faced with. So Pakistan has been also doing much more as compared to what the TTP had done for Afghan Taliban. So don't you think Afghan Taliban owe to Pakistan more as compared to they owe to the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan?
I agree with you, but I would not sweet quote the opinion I have. If we invest into a certain cause and we take certain actions, and we also spend money over it, and if we are unable to get the result, the desired result we want, so that is our failure, not anybody else's failure. In my opinion, we have to look into 2 aspects. One is the diplomatic or political angle, and the other is the security angle. After Afghan Taliban took over Afghanistan, we thought that things will automatically improve. Whatever you have said about our the special care we have taken of Afghani people since last 2 years, I agree with you, but it also has benefits for Pakistan's traders, and we are earning money out of it also. We are not just sending aid, we are doing trade with them.
If there is a benefit for Pakistani business and trade also, there could be a benefit for the Afghan people in return also. I will be talking about this particular point further in detail. We are joined by another participant in the show by Dr. Syed Akhtar Ali Shah, former IGP and former Home Secretary. Dr. Shah, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. A report has been released by Pak Institute for Peace studies that says that after the Afghan Taliban took over Kabul, ever since during this 21-month period, there had been an increase of 74% of the terrorist attacks in Pakistan. What core reasons do you think are associated with that?
There is no doubt about that. During the last around 6, 7 months, the average attack have increased. Rather, it is said that 53% increase has been observed. But having said this, I would say that after the recent visit of the Afghan foreign minister and the Chinese foreign minister to Pakistan, some parleys were held, and I believe that the foreign minister has been communicated about the concerns of Pakistan regarding the security situation in Pakistan. So after that, a slight decrease has been observed as far as incidents of terrorism in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is concerned. But at the same time, I have got personal reports that armed militants have also been observed moving in certain areas of Badr and Malakand and Khyber Agency, North Waziristan. So their movement, of course, is a challenge to the writ of the state. So from that perspective, if the armed groups are there, then there is always apprehension of threat and increase of the incidents of militancy and the incidents of extortion as far as those are concerned. So
that after the trilateral, I seek your pardon for the interjection. You mentioned that after the trilateral summit between among the foreign ministers of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China, there's a slight decrease in these acts, particularly when we talk about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But there are a number of incidents that have happened in which we have seen the soldiers also losing life, and there are a number of intelligence-based operations as Pakistani armed forces, law enforcement remain quite vigilant in order to eliminate this menace. The terrorists also have been killed in exchange of fire. So don't you think the Afghan Taliban, despite Pakistani authorities repeatedly conveying to them that TTP remains to be the absolute red line for Pakistan, and they need to fulfill their commitment to take a concrete action against them, they're not taking this particular repeated call that seriously as much as they should take it?
Yes, of course. Even during that visit, the statement of Afghan foreign minister was not encouraging. I would say it was evasive. He stated that they would facilitate a dialogue between the government of Pakistan and TTP. But before that, a number of parleys have been held with the TTP, but they did abide by the agreements and they violated the terms and conditions. So unless the Afghan government takes some concrete steps and action against the TTP, who have their safe abodes in Afghanistan, things would not improve.
Okay, so Pakistani authorities, Dr. Shah, have categorically, repeatedly said that there is not an option of negotiations with the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. It has also shunned the appeasement policy of the previous government in Pakistan. Also, despite conveying of this particular message on categorical terms to the Afghan authorities, why do you think they continuously call for dialogue or negotiation or talks between the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and the Pakistani government?
One of the major reasons, I believe, is that the Pakistani Taliban had also been fighting against the foreign forces shoulder to shoulder to the Afghan Taliban. And there are some, I would say, they are akin ideologically. So this is one of the major reasons why the Afghan Taliban are reluctant to use force against them.
Dr. Shah, if the Afghan Taliban and the TTP had been fighting against the international, the foreign troops shoulder to shoulder, wasn't there anything done from Pakistani authorities for the welfare or for the case of the Afghan people? Shouldn't there be a reciprocation, or don't you think Pakistan deserves better from the Afghan authorities as compared to what they are giving to the banned TTP?
Yes, Pakistan has always advocated their case internationally, even after the vacation of the forces of US and NATO. Pakistan has very ably negotiated, rather educated their case from a humanitarian perspective, and all along been stressing to engage Afghan Taliban, and the Afghan people should not suffer because of the conflict. So morally they are bound, not only morally but also the Doha Agreement under the international law is binding on them that the Afghan side should not be used against any other country. So under the international treaty, which has a binding effect, they are required to take action against any force, whether Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or any other organization using their soil against Pakistan or any other country. So it is not only of their moral responsibility, but also their legal responsibility.
Right, Dr. Syed Akhtar Ali Shah, former IGP and former Home Secretary, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. We are joined by another participant on the phone line, Mr. Safdar Sial. He is Joint Director of Pak Institute for Peace Studies, and the report that we were already mentioning, he's the author of that report. Mr. Sial, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Would you like to share with our viewers the broader contours of the salient features of the report your institute has published recently?
Yeah, thank you, Jawad. Basically, this report is about Pakistan's Afghan policy and how Pakistan can strengthen support for Afghan peace and stability. And one chapter focuses the fallout from Afghanistan on Pakistan's security and other areas. So in that chapter, we have noted that the number of terrorist attacks have basically surged in Pakistan since the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, and that number is about 71% increase overall and in Pakistan, and that in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that increase has been 92%, and in Balochistan 81%. So this is data of 21 months since the Taliban takeover. So this is basically only one indicator of how the Afghan situation has been impacting Pakistan in terms of insecurity and violence and border skirmishes. But there are other indicators as well. As we know well that the TTP got emboldened basically by the Taliban takeover of Kabul, and even before 2-3 months of August 21, when the Taliban had started to march towards Kabul, the TTP had also increased its attacks. And since then, this surge in terrorist attacks and cross-border incursions have increased, and we have seen that there were episodes of talks, and those were doomed to fail from the very outset, I can say, and because Pakistan being in very good position, because Pakistan has very strong kinetic counter-terrorism mechanism structures here. So from the very beginning, there was no need to appease this group and go for talks from a position which the analysts say that from a position of weakness. So we see the outcome, what has happened now, that they are emboldened. They have announced their chapters in different districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and even in Balochistan, Zob districts. And Afghan Taliban's inaction has been emboldening them. And East eastern and southern provinces of Afghanistan, we have seen that the TTP has strengthened in those regions which border on Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan districts. And we have also seen that there have been some nexus between TTP and other groups. And since July 2020, if I am correct in that quotation, that 28 groups and commanders have joined the TTP. So that also tells how this group has been strengthening. And in particular, from 2017, TTP started to regroup and strengthen its position in Pakistan and Afghanistan-Pakistan bordering regions. And that was initially with the help of Al-Qaeda, and later it eventually got this encouragement and emboldenment from the Taliban takeover.
Right. Mr. Sial, does your report also try to identify the reasons, the core reasons of the Afghan Taliban's inaction against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan, especially despite Pakistani authorities conveying them categorically that the banned TTP remains to be the absolute red line and there is no room of negotiations with them?
Yes, this is recently Pakistani government has declared categorically that there will be no more talks with this group. And the Afghan Taliban, basically what we know from our consultations with the experts, because this report is based on 8 expert consultations we held since July 2021. And most participants and observers held that the Afghan Taliban have their own reasons for not being able to act against this group. And those reasons are basically because they have together fought in Afghanistan against the international forces. They have ideological consonance, and many even term that they are the two sides of the same coin. So there are ideological and security implications for the Afghan Taliban if they are going to act against the TTP and other groups. So others also argued that for Pakistan it is better policy option to engage outside the security framework with the Afghan government, Afghan Taliban, in terms of trade and engagement, border security, border management, because the broader engagement that is outside the security framework will make Pakistan and Afghanistan interdependent, not only economically but also in terms of security. So then I think Afghan Taliban will be forced to deal with the TTP threat when Pakistan and Afghanistan security and economy are interlinked and interdependent.
Right, Mr. Sial, does your report also try to compare, as you already mentioned, the basic reason that the Afghan Taliban are unable to take any concrete action against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan because they've been fighting together, and there could be security implications for them if they take a concrete action against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. But on the other side, we have seen they taking a concrete action against the IS Khorasan. So does your report also compare that particular action against one militant outfit as compared to no action against another terrorist outfit?
Yes, I think Islamic State Khorasan is the only ideological rival of the Taliban in Afghanistan. And all the other groups, most of the other groups like Al-Qaeda, even factions of Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, ETIM, or Turkestan Islamic Party. So different other Central Asian groups or South Asian groups, including TTP, this is from Pakistan. So all other groups have some sort of ideological resonance with Afghan Taliban. And although some factions from within these groups have joined Islamic State, but for the moment it is the Islamic State that is the only ideological rival of the Taliban, and they have been trying their best to discredit the Afghan Taliban and basically invite other countries, the neighboring countries, to intervene. So either through firing missiles in certain Central Asian countries or just trying to recruit from other groups which are like instant anti-China or anti-Central Asian or anti-Pakistan.
So Mr. Sial, do we understand that if the Afghan Taliban most of the terrorist groups or the militant outfits, as you have mentioned, do have the ideological affiliation with the Afghan Taliban, and the IS Khorasan happens to be the only rival faction over there. But we have seen a number of instances when the Afghan Taliban have taken concrete action against the IS Khorasan. So do we understand that if they do take action against IS Khorasan, there are no security implications for the Afghan Taliban?
Yes, there are no, because I think every country in the region is against the Islamic State. So this is also one thing, and the Taliban find it also ideologically relevant for them to act against the Islamic State. See, this is something which is coming from the United States, the European countries, even China, Pakistan, every country in the neighborhood, in Iran. So they all are just asking the Afghan Taliban to act against the Islamic State Khorasan. And this is one thing externally. But internally, as I mentioned earlier, this is also for Afghan Taliban's own ideological, you can say, expedience that they act against the Islamic State. But there are so many other groups, and against those groups, they will take very selective action, and not like this comprehensive kinetic action as they are taking against the Islamic State.
Right, Mr. Safdar, Sial, Joint Director, Pak Institute for Peace Studies, author of the report that has been released regarding the Pakistan's perspective on Afghanistan and the policy options. Thank you very much for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Brigadier Zeeshan, now the same question, the security implications for the Afghan Taliban if they take an action against the TTP or any other group which is affiliated ideologically towards them, and do we understand there is not going to be any security implication for them when they take action against IS?
Very pertinent question, and the answer lies within this question. Try and understand that Afghan Taliban, now I will call them as Afghan government, they took power and they are now in control, they have the government. There is no opposition there. It is only Afghan Taliban. There is no concept of opposition in Kabul right now or any, their provincial government. So they are the power of Afghanistan. So call them Afghan government, not Afghan Taliban. Any government, what do they like when they get into power? They want influence. Now the influence has two dimensions. One is internal and one is external. Internally, they have their own setup. They do get, influence through the tribal society, tribal mechanisms. But externally, partly their fault and partly the promises which were made to them, they were not fulfilled. So they are left with only such Pashtun elements which, happen to reside only in Pakistan in their neighborhood, who have an affiliation, who will support the ideology of Afghan government today. So that is another reason, apart from the history between TTP and the Afghan Taliban, now the Afghan government. There is another reason is of influence. Second factor which does not motivate or push the Afghan government today to take concrete aggressive action against TTP inside their territory is that they know that Pakistanis have a lot at stake. Pakistanis will not go that far to hurt the Afghan government today. Pakistanis will not undertake any military action against the Afghanistan today. And that is why they are not much pushed to disturb their relationship with the only factor which, takes their influence beyond their borders. The problem lies within our mechanism, the way we are, handling Afghanistan since last 50 years. Firstly, we try to appease them, and after appeasement doesn't work, we expect that they should start honoring or they should accept that what Pakistan has done for the Afghani people, and then they give in return what Pakistan wants. It doesn't happen that way. It is a position of weakness, as has been highlighted by your two other experts also. So diplomatically, we are at a position of weakness. Now the second thing comes is security. Security angle of Pakistan has been pretty effective, but we need to understand that prevention is better than cure. There is one way of handling the surge of TTP inside Pakistani tribal regions. Now the districts, newly merged districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. However, at the same time, we need to develop our mechanism, intelligence networks within the Afghanistan, and that is purely through the social contact with the Afghani people, through our various consulates, through our various forums where Pakistanis and Afghanis operate together while being in Afghanistan. Because whatever warning you get, whatever intelligence or information you get well in time, it will help you in taking concrete action against TTP within our area. So to conclude, I would say that at the moment, Afghan government does not feel the pressure to listen to Pakistan government.
So
for TTP.
how do you think this sort of a pressure could be exerted?
That is about
what could
that
be
is
the strategy and the approach from the Pakistani authorities?
The approach has to be really well defined. Another problem where we are suffering in our foreign policy since some decades is the balancing act. We want to balance United States and China. We want to balance Saudi Arabia and Iran. We want to balance Afghan Taliban and United States. Everywhere we want to take a balance. Balance has to have a bias. We have to show that what is our bias, that we have to define what we need, whether it is United States, it is China, it is Saudi Arabia, Iran, or it is Afghan government. So that is lacking. Appeasement and our love of the balancing act does not
from here
solve the
onwards,
problem.
what should be done to impress upon the Afghan Taliban? How do you think we should be engaging with them when it comes to on the diplomatic front?
The first thing is you have a very big population, Afghani population living in Pakistan. Most of them are without documentation, and most of them come under the term of refugees. That population can exert pressure if we organize through them. One. Secondly, the trade is a very vital link within the domestic economy of Pakistan, Afghanistan, I'm sorry. So that has to be used. We should not be much worried about the human crisis. Nobody worries about human crisis anymore. We have to use the leverage of trade with Afghanistan in our favor. We have to be little, strong when we are talking to them. Not in terms of what some ministers have been saying few months back that, we will go and strike inside Afghan territory. You are forcing them to react aggressively against you. Not like that, diplomatically, but the leverage has to be, sought through the trade. Thirdly, what we need to do is we need to work with the international community and develop certain kind of forums which we have not been able to do. We expected that Chinese and Russians will come up and fill the vacuum left by United States, but Chinese and Russians did not come forward. Chinese did go in Afghanistan, but they are very cautious over there. They are not going to take actions which will be supportive for Pakistan. So per force, we will have to go back to United States on this issue, and that has to be done. It may not appease Afghan government today, but you will have to take this measure to tell them that if you don't listen to us, then you are not leaving us any option.
So what about the prospects of regional connectivity when it comes to the regional countries, including Pakistan, China, Iran, and Afghanistan? So don't you think there is a realization among the Taliban? As you mentioned, the trade happens to be very important for them. So Pakistan should be seeking that leverage from trade. So how can Pakistan play on this particular front with them?
Regional connectivity, in my opinion, people may not agree with that, but in my opinion, regional connectivity is just a dream right now. We haven't taken any concrete measures, and this regional connectivity is not there on ground where people in Afghanistan or the government officials in Kabul start taking it seriously. So this carrot does not have that effect today. It may have after 10 years when CPEC has realized its various benefits for the Pakistan, and then you can share those benefits with the region. So that regional connectivity is a good terminology, but it is not having that effect right now.
Right now, but of course it's going to have some dividends in the longer run, no?
It may, but it takes a lot. You have to develop your own SEZs first to realize the benefits which you can get from the CPEC. CPEC is primarily the infrastructure and power projects up till now. But that infrastructure and that power has to be used for certain industrial output. That industrial output needs industrial relocation from China and Europe. And for that relocation, you need to develop SEZs. Where are we on those SEZs? So there is nothing with the government of Pakistan right now to pressurize or to use it as a carrot for the Afghan government in Kabul today. They may have it after 10 years, but what is the situation today? They don't have regional connectivity as
right,
a good factor.
One last thing, the thing which I couldn't understand during the conversation. On one side, you said that it is a perspective of the Afghan Taliban that Pakistan can't take that concrete action or sort of a direct military action against them because there's so many things going on within Pakistan. But at the same time, when the Pakistani officials tell them that if they are not going to take any concrete action against banned Taliban Pakistan is going to take direct kinetic action on the Afghan soil also, which you say results in the sort of a retaliation or the reactionary mode on from the Afghan Taliban. So I can't understand both things because I understand a little bit of contradiction in these two arguments.
Okay, let me put it in another way. There are about 5 million Afghans in Pakistan. Then there are Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. Then there are Baloch separatists who are fighting for Balochistan cause, their cause. So Pakistan is also experiencing one of the worst political crises right now. Pakistan is also experiencing the lowest in its economic history. All these factors have put us in a very vulnerable position, and we are not in a position to indirectly threat or pressurize or influence Afghan government today to take actions for the benefit of Pakistan against TTP. This is the reality which we need to understand, that until and unless we are internally strong, stable, with a good working economy, nobody is going to listen to us. What to talk of the Western world, right. Even Afghan government is not listening to us.
Right. Brigadier Retired Mohammed Zeeshan, Director General, Center for Peace, Security and Developmental Studies. Thank you very much for joining in the studio today at Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's Views on News. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.